Today we're going to break down geography by its component parts. We're focusing specifically on regions. A region is an area of land that has common features. It can be defined by its natural or artificial traits. Language, government, or religion can define a region, as can forest, wildlife, or climate. Regions are basically broken down into component parts. These parts are called formal regions, functional regions, and perceptual regions. Formal regions are areas in which a certain characteristic is found throughout that region. So Brazil is a formal region. Formality basically delineates the formal and objective or data-based aspect of the region. So Brazil has very clear boundaries with shared legal system, official language, etc. The state capital or national capital could be a formal region for the same reasons. Functional regions consist of a central place and the surrounding places affected by it. So when you're thinking of functional region, think of what serves the region. It could be a transportation system. It could be an airport such as Dallas, Fort Worth. It kind of serves, it's in a metropolitan location. So, and it serves that location and the areas around it. Perceptual regions are defined by people's attitudes and feelings about areas. So usually if you hear the word Hollywood, you have an immediate feeling about it. Or California. I'm from California. The minute I say that, people have all kinds of things to say about it. So, it's definitely thought of as a fantastic vacation destination. Usually people will think surfing right away, and then a lot of times people will make references to it being La La Land or whatever. Just laid back people to the point of flakiness. So, every area has a perception. And these areas can be broken down in larger or smaller regions. So just to break it down further, formal regions are more of a political designation. There are certain specific characteristics shared. All people are subject to the same laws and government in this area. Examples are states, countries, and cities. But formal regions could also be broken down into other specific categorizations. So the Great Plains, for example, is a very specific ecological or geological part of the United States. And it has its own boundaries and it shares characteristics along that entire path. So we know that the Great Plains are characterized by temperate grasslands and fertile soils. So those are characteristics served by that region, even though it encompasses parts of different states. Patagonia is another example of a formal region. It's a windswept plateau south of the Pampas. It's desolate, dry, and cold. It shares those characteristics. Geologists all know what is inferred when you talk about that region. So you wouldn't call Puerto Madryn on the coast of Argentina part of Patagonia. It's a very specific type of ecology and geologic unit in Argentina. Even Chinatown can be designated a formal region. It's a very specific area, and most of the businesses or the stores are Chinese influenced. And they're in different areas. I mean, of course, there's a Chinatown in San Francisco, a Chinatown in New York, a Chinatown in Philadelphia, but they all share similar characteristics. If I talked about Chinatown in Philadelphia, you would know exactly what I was talking about and probably would have a pretty good idea of what to expect there. And it's a specific location. Functional regions consist of a central place and the surrounding places affected by it. And you can think of it in terms of what does it serve. It's often linked by the flow of movement or product or service. So Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas metropolitan area is linked by a common airport that serves that region. If there's a function to it. A functional region can be defined by its internal organization, which usually centers around some focal point. So this could be a city, it could be a school in an educational district, a shopping center in a large market area, or a large company that employs a sizable number of workers. It could also be characterized by maybe a transportation area like Interstate 80, which serves, a specific region, or even the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has functional regions. They have a Southwest region, they have a Northeast region, etc. Another example would be the Amazon River Drainage Basin. So the Amazon River Drainage Basin incorporates or encompasses a few different countries in South America, but it serves a purpose there, and there's shared characteristics in that specific ecological zone. So it's a larger zone. And it's basically a bowl or dish-shaped geographic feature, and water runs to and settles in the middle. But that creates a specific ecology in that area that serves the inhabitants, whether they're in one country or another, in a particular way. Perceptual regions are defined by people's attitudes and feelings about areas. Sometimes perceptual regions are called vernacular regions, and they may vary by individual perceptions. So an example might be the American South. Usually you say that phrase and people might have a very specific perception that comes to mind. The American South is also known as the Heart of Dixie, or the Cotton Belt. So if I hear Heart of Dixie or Cotton Belt, I immediately think of the American South. Other perceptual regions are some world cities, such as Paris. You say the City of Lights, people know as Paris. Chicago is designated as a windy city. It's not the most windy city in the United States, but that's the perception. Los Angeles, people think of it as La La Land, or they think of it in terms of the entertainment industry because that is a heavy basis for their industry and service. So That's a pretty fair perception. St. Louis, Missouri is thought of as the gateway to the West. And part of that is because they have a monument that actually symbolizes that and reinforces that perception. The perceptions can be accurate. They could be not quite as accurate as one might think, or biased. And they can be a little subjective too. Some people might have different ideas of the same area. So just to reinforce this idea of formal, functional, or perceptual regions, let's just go over a few examples. So the state of Nebraska is formal. It's clear regional legal boundary with state residents that can all be tracked by census, and they all live under the same state laws. So Nebraska has its own state constitution, its own state laws. The Amazon River Basin is functional. You have to think of what it does. It's not really a legal boundary. It's an ecology or water system that serves the area around it. And Dixie. That's a perceptual region. You're thinking deep south, original Confederate states. And some people have associated it with Southern pride, and others think of it differently. They still think of slavery and things like that. So where I'm from, in the West, we tend to characterize Dixie more in a pejorative way. The Sun Belt is also perceptual. It's just the bottom parts of the U.S. with mild winters. So if you hear the term Sun Belt, you kind of start thinking of the lower states. Lancaster County is formal. It is an incorporated county within Pennsylvania with very clear lines of designation. Same thing with the country of Brazil, formal, clear boundaries, legal system, resident criteria. The I-80 corridor is a functional region. So the I-80 is a transportation system, Interstate 80, that functions across the United States and serves a certain corridor of the United States, a certain section. It's different from Route 66 that serves an entirely different portion. Steeler Nation is perceptual. It's basically incorporates anyone, anywhere who roots for the Steelers. So I could be rooting for the Steelers in California, and I'm part of Steeler Nation. That's perception. So you can be in Pittsburgh, you can be in California, you can be in Paris and be part of Steeler Nation. So those are the different region types, and in the assignment you're just going to take